So I decided to talk about Italy in light of the recent unfortunate events. So a little background about Italy. It's one of Europe's biggest countries. It has a population of about 65 million citizens with a population density of about 200 people per square kilometer. It's also worth noting that about 75% of its territory is occupied with like mountains and hills, which gives it a nice location to receive rainfall, especially in the northern regions. That makes its use for hydropower much easier, and that's why it's most known for its hydropower use, uh, unlike France, for example, for its nuclear power. So in 2006, they released a quota that was introduced to reduce carbon dioxide emissions within the transportation sector. And in November 2014, Italy became the first European Union member state to mandate the use of advanced biofuels. So from January 2018, gasoline and diesel contain at least 1.2% advanced biofuel, rising to 1.6% by 2020 and expected to rise up to 2% by 2022. So here's a little look about the energy use in Italy. So as you can see, oil predominantly dominates the energy use. However, if you take a look from the year 2000, we can see that it steadily goes down quite noticeably. Biofuels and waste energy, like biomass and stuff like that, has been noticeably going up from the year 2002. Wind and solar is quite there. Uh, Natural gas is also quite abundant, and coal has been in reasonable amounts. So biomass is found in Italy in the shape of like direct and indirect wood and waste and stuff like that. So the country reached its 2020 energy strategy target of 17% of renewables in gross energy consumption in 2014. So that's not only 6 years out of the 2020 deadline, but it's also stronger performance than the other European Union countries. And Italy also releases about 314 metric ton of carbon dioxide, which is about 19 or 20% less than the year 1990. But ideally, a country with Italy's GDP would probably look to improve that number even more. And here's a view of Italy's energy use. So the gross energy production of biomass and waste in Italy between the years 2011 and 2018 can be seen below. So from 2011 to 2016, we can see that the energy production for biomass and waste has been steadily going up until the 19,600 mark, and then it kind of plateaus on to the next couple of years. And if we take a look onto the number of biogas plants in Italy from 2013 to 2018, we can almost see the same pattern, that it goes up until the 260-ish mark in 2016, and then it also plateaus onto the next couple of years. So in 2014, biomass provided the largest share of renewable energy in the heating and cooling sector at 13.4% of the total, equating to just over 7 million tons of oil equivalent. Renewable energy from heat pumps provided almost 5% of the total sector, an area in which Italy is more developed than most countries. Solar and geothermal power provided a contribution of 0.3% and 0.2% respectively. So that was a look at Italy's past use of energy, and here's an estimation of Italy's production in the future. So we can see that in 2018 it was about 1.3 million tow. This year it's 1.8, and it should rise by about 1 million tow within the next 5 years, and then it will also be expected to plateau onto the next couple of years. So the main fuels used within the transportation sector are, of course, biodiesel, biomethane, bioethanol, and biohydrogen. In 2016, Italy recorded an overall share of 7.2% renewable energy in the transportation sector, and Italy reduced its CO2 emissions to 314 from 1990, which is about 19% reduction, as I said in the previous slide. So here's taking a look at the non-fossil fuel electricity generation. So due to Italy's geographic location, we can see that the hydropower has been dominating. Uh, and then comes the biomass, the wind, and the solar up in like second place. And then with smaller amount is the nuclear. So here are a couple of policies that affect Italy's energy use and take it into consideration. So in November 2017, the MSE published the National Energy Strategy, which is a 10-year roadmap setting out the objectives for 2030 and encouraging further RES development. The National Energy Strategy set the ambitious target share percentage for RES of 28% of gross final energy consumption by 2030, comprising of 55% target for electricity, which was previously 33.5% in 2015, and then second of all, 30% target for thermal energy, which is previously 19.2% in 2015, and finally 21% target for transport, which was previously 6.4% in 2015. So moving on, the Italian government proposed an environmental component for excise tax as part of the 2012 tax reform. So this was a major turning point in the country's environmental policy because such a tool has enormous potential for reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well as accelerating the shift to a greener energy supply. With Article 15 of the 2012 tax reform, the government proposed a revision of excise tax or energy products on the basis of environmental criteria. The idea was to introduce new rates proportional to generated emissions in order to curb the use of dirtier energy sources while incentivizing the use of renewables. This is a very important policy area for Italy because energy production and consumption account for about 60% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So here's a quick comparison of the biodiesel production in Italy and in Brazil. So Brazil has an annual biodiesel production in 2013 of about 2.8 billion liters, which is much less for ethanol. Biodiesel production is promoted through a blending mandate. This mandate, which has been set at 5% for several years, was recently increased to 6%, with a further increase to 7% planned for November 2014. It is expected that this will boost biodiesel production in Brazil. Taking a look at Italy, so out of 1.58 metric ton of biodiesel on the national market, 0.48 metric tons were produced in Italy, while 1.1 were imported. So Malaysia and Argentina were the primary exporters from which biodiesel was purchased. So we can clearly see that Brazil is dominating when it comes to biodiesel production. Italy unfortunately has to import quite a substantial amount from exporters such as Malaysia and Argentina, and that is also the case with like oil, as we've seen with the previous graphs. So they rely heavily on fossil fuels, and that is not good for their economy. As we all know, like Italy does not produce oil; they have to import it from other countries such as Iran, Iraq, and Kuwait. That's where they get mostly their oil from. So a quick conclusion and analysis of the PowerPoint presentation. Italy is apparently ahead of many European countries regarding renewable energy use. Italy's main source of bioenergy comes from hydropower due to its geographical location, with the mountains and the hills making up most of its territory. And unfortunately, Italy still depends heavily on fossil fuels. And yep, this is my PowerPoint.